You know this instinct well. Something feels off, so you lean in. You listen harder. You replay conversations. You analyze tone, timing, meaning. You tell yourself you're being mature, emotionally intelligent, evolved, that if you just understand enough, connection will deepen. But slowly, almost invisibly, the opposite starts happening. The more you try to understand, the less you're felt. The more you explain, the less weight your presence carries. And you can't pinpoint when it started. Only that respect feels thinner than it used to. This is the trap. Men believe understanding creates closeness. It sounds logical, noble, even. But what no one tells you is that the moment you start orienting yourself around emotional clarity, you quietly give up position. You stop standing in yourself and start leaning towards someone else's internal world. And leaning is never neutral. It signals uncertainty. It signals dependence. It signals that your stability now requires answers you don't control. You've felt this shift before. You listen harder, but you're taken less seriously. You analyze more, but the dynamic feels heavier. You ask for clarity, and suddenly you're explaining yourself instead of being felt. Nothing explodes. Nothing dramatic happens. Your value doesn't disappear overnight. It leaks. Quietly. Through questions. Through overprocessing. Through the need to understand what should never have required understanding in the first place. This isn't about ignorance. It's not about being cold or dismissive. It's about recognizing that understanding, when driven by emotional instability, becomes a liability. Because the man trying to understand everything is no longer grounded. He's reactive. He's adjusting. He's following the emotional lead instead of holding his own center. The moment a man starts trying to understand everything emotionally, his value begins to leak quietly. And once you see how that happens, you can't unsee it. This video explains why trying to understand is often the fastest way for a man to lose ground. Men don't start searching for understanding when they're strong. They start searching for it when something inside them slips, when their footing disappears, when certainty fades. That's the part most men miss. Understanding doesn't come from clarity, it comes from disturbance. When you're grounded, you don't need to decode. You move. You decide. You stay present. But when emotional uncertainty enters the picture, presence collapses and analysis rushes in to replace it. This is the moment the shift happens. Something changes in her tone. A response feels colder. A delay appears where there used to be ease. And instead of staying centered, your attention turns inward. You begin scanning for meaning. You replay conversations looking for the mistake. You reread messages, not to respond, but to diagnose. Your body feels unsettled, so your mind goes to work. Analysis becomes a coping mechanism. What actually happens is simple but costly. Emotional uncertainty appears. Your internal balance weakens, and instead of holding presence, you substitute it with thinking, with figuring out, with understanding. But presence and analysis don't coexist. The more you analyze, the less you're felt. The more you think, the less grounded you become. And without realizing it, you've traded stability for speculation. You see this everywhere. A man waits before sending a message, not because he's calm, but because he's calculating. He rewinds a conversation repeatedly, trying to extract certainty from the past. He delays action until he understands how she feels, believing clarity must come before movement. But clarity never arrives, because the act of waiting reinforces instability, and the longer he waits, the further he drifts from himself. This is why understanding is so deceptive. It feels intelligent. It feels mature. But most of the time, it's not wisdom. It's a response to lost center. A man who is grounded doesn't need to understand every emotional shift. He observes it without being pulled into it. He doesn't chase explanations to feel safe. He doesn't need certainty to remain intact. Understanding becomes dangerous the moment it replaces presence, because the man who tries to think his way back into stability rarely succeeds. He only proves to himself and others that his balance now depends on answers he doesn't control. And once that happens, value doesn't disappear loudly. It erodes quietly, one thought, one replay, one unanswered question at a time. The moment you start trying to understand, the balance quietly shifts, not emotionally, psychologically, because in any dynamic, the person seeking clarity is no longer leading the frame. They are responding to it. And leadership doesn't disappear through failure. It dissolves through dependence. The need to understand hands initiative to the other person without a word being spoken. Here's the mechanism most men never notice. When you ask for clarity, you signal that your internal stability depends on her explanation. Your calm now requires information. Your direction pauses until she resolves something for you. That pause is where power leaks, because the one who can delay clarity now controls the emotional tempo, and tempo is power. The phrases sound harmless. Help me understand how you feel. I just want clarity. What changed, but beneath those words is a signal that can't be unheard. I'm unsettled, and you hold the answer. That's emotional dependence, not an intention, but an effect. And dependence creates leverage against you, not because she's trying to dominate, but because human systems always reorganize around the point of need. Once this happens, the dynamic changes instantly. She feels you leaning. She feels your attention narrowing. She feels the subtle pressure of being responsible for your emotional balance. And even if she doesn't articulate it, her nervous system registers it. Attraction doesn't respond to need, it responds to grounded presence. And the more you seek explanations, the less presence you carry. You've felt this shift before. The moment you asked for clarity, the energy cooled. The moment you tried to understand, the dynamic became heavier. Suddenly you're explaining yourself, justifying your questions, trying to restore something that slipped the instant you reached for it. That's because understanding moved you from being felt to being evaluated. The man asking to understand is no longer the man being felt. He's now the man seeking permission to stabilize. And once you're in that position, no explanation will give you back what was lost, because the loss wasn't informational. It was positional. And the only way value returns is when the need to understand disappears entirely. The belief that emotional intelligence creates attraction is one of the most damaging myths men absorb. It sounds progressive, safe, mature. Understand her feelings, decode her emotions, be emotionally fluent. But here's the reality no one says out loud. Women don't bond with men who understand everything. They bond with men who remain emotionally stable, even when nothing is explained. Stability is felt. Understanding is requested. And those two signals land very differently. Over-understanding backfires because it doesn't feel intelligent on the receiving end. It feels reactive. When a man leans forward every time the emotional weather changes, it signals that his internal state is fragile, that he needs constant calibration, that uncertainty rattles him. Even if his words are calm, the behavior underneath feels needy, not desperate, but hungry. Hungry for reassurance, hungry for clarity, hungry for emotional grounding that should be self-generated. This is why emotional intelligence often gets misused. Instead of being a tool for regulation, it becomes a tool for interrogation. Questions pile up, clarifications are requested, emotional states are dissected in real time. And while the man believes he's creating depth, what he's actually creating is pressure. The interaction turns into emotional labor. She starts feeling observed instead of felt, responsible instead of relaxed. What actually creates respect looks very different. Observation instead of interrogation. He notices shifts without demanding explanations, calm without answers. He doesn't need to resolve emotional ambiguity immediately to stay centered. Presence without reassurance. He doesn't require constant confirmation to remain grounded in himself. That steadiness communicates something words never can. I can handle uncertainty without losing myself. Women don't respect men who need explanations to stay calm. Not because explanations are wrong, but because the need for them reveals instability. Respect grows when a man can sit inside ambiguity without collapsing into analysis. When he doesn't chase emotional certainty to feel safe. When his nervous system stays regulated even when hers fluctuates. This is the quiet difference between being emotionally intelligent and being emotionally strong. One seeks understanding to survive the moment. The other remains intact without it. And that difference is felt immediately long before it's ever understood. The fourth truth explains why so many connections die slowly in conversations that were meant to save them. Understanding creates emotional weight when it's not anchored in grounding. Depth, without structure, turns into labor, and labor is the fastest way to turn desire into obligation. What starts as communication quietly becomes maintenance. You see this when every emotional shift requires processing. A change in tone becomes a discussion. A moment of distance turns into a long conversation. A single misunderstanding expands into an hour of explaining, reassuring, clarifying. The man believes he's creating safety by staying engaged, by going deeper, by making sure everything is understood. But what she feels is accumulation. Each conversation adds weight. Each explanation adds responsibility. Each "let's talk about it" turns the connection into work. Repeated emotional discussions don't feel intimate over time. They feel heavy. Not because emotions are bad, but because there's no containment. The dynamic starts revolving around feelings instead of life. Energy that should be moving forward gets recycled inward. And instead of desire building, tension does. She begins to associate closeness with effort. Being around you means processing, managing, staying on. Attraction doesn't survive long in that environment. Long explanations after every shift are especially corrosive. They signal that nothing can simply be. Everything must be resolved. Every emotion must be named. Every fluctuation must be addressed. And while this sounds healthy in theory, in practice it removes ease. It removes spontaneity. It removes polarity. What's left is responsibility. And responsibility is not what desire responds to. This is the moment when interaction starts to feel heavy, not dramatic, not explosive, just dense. The air thickens. The connection slows. Desire quietly turns into obligation, because now there's an expectation to engage emotionally at all times, to respond correctly, to reassure consistently, to manage the dynamic instead of living inside it. Depth without structure doesn't connect. It exhausts. Structure is what allows depth to breathe. Without it, understanding becomes emotional weight. And the man who keeps adding depth to compensate for instability doesn't realize he's doing the opposite of what he intends. He's not creating closeness. He's creating gravity. And gravity, when it's emotional, pulls desire straight down. The fifth truth is where the consequences finally become visible. Men who try to understand too much don't just lose attraction, they lose presence. And presence is what makes a man felt in a room. When presence collapses, everything else follows quietly behind it. You start noticing small things first. People interrupt you more, not rudely, casually. Your sentences trail off without being completed. Your opinions are acknowledged, but not anchored. Conversations move on without waiting for your input. Nothing dramatic happens, but something is missing weight. Your words no longer land the way they used to, because they're no longer backed by grounded energy. This happens because your attention has turned inward. Instead of occupying the moment, you're monitoring it. Instead of being present, you're processing. You're watching reactions, scanning emotional shifts, adjusting in real time. And that inward focus pulls energy away from the room. Presence requires outward orientation. Understanding pulls you back inside your own head. The more you try to figure things out internally, the less you project stability externally. As presence collapses, others begin guiding the emotional frame. Someone else sets the tone. Someone else decides when things move forward or pause. You follow rather than shape. Not because you're weak, but because your signal has softened. Masculine energy isn't loud, it's directional. When that direction disappears, people feel it immediately, even if they can't explain why. This is why the man who tries hardest to understand often feels invisible. He's there, but not fully there. His body is present, but his attention is fragmented, and people respond to what they feel, not what they're told. They feel uncertainty. They feel hesitation. They feel a man who is listening too closely instead of standing firmly. The man who tries to understand everything slowly disappears from the room, not physically, but energetically. He fades into the background of the interaction he's trying to manage, and once presence is gone, no amount of insight brings it back. Presence isn't built through understanding, it's built through grounded attention, steady direction, and the ability to remain whole without needing every emotional variable resolved first. Applying this correctly doesn't mean becoming cold, distant, or ignorant. That's the mistake men make when they finally realize understanding has been costing them. They swing to the opposite extreme and shut down. That's not strength, it's avoidance. The shift here is subtler and far more powerful. You don't remove emotion, You remove dependence on explanation. The first principle is observation instead of interrogation. You stop asking questions that are really bids for stability. You don't chase emotional meaning with words. You let behavior speak over time. When someone's energy shifts, you notice it without confronting it immediately. You don't demand answers to feel okay. You allow patterns to reveal themselves. Observation keeps you present. Interrogation pulls you out of yourself. The second principle is regulation instead of explanation. When something feels uncertain, your job isn't to explain your way back to comfort. It's to regulate your internal state. That means noticing tension without acting on it, letting emotional waves pass without reacting. Not every feeling needs a conversation. Not every shift needs processing. The man who can stay calm without resolving everything communicates strength without saying a word. The third principle is staying in motion without answers. This is where most men fail. They pause their lives waiting for clarity. They delay decisions. They hold still until someone else explains what's happening. That freeze drains value fast. Staying in motion means your direction doesn't stall because someone else is uncertain. You continue your rhythm. Your priorities stay intact. Your life doesn't wait for emotional permission. Practically. This looks simple but uncomfortable at first. You let behavior reveal meaning instead of demanding verbal clarity. You stop asking, "What does this mean?" and start watching what repeats. You don't punish distance, but you don't chase it either. You maintain your routines, your pace, your direction, regardless of emotional ambiguity. And most importantly, you don't outsource your stability. You don't need to understand everything to remain grounded. Groundedness comes from containment, not comprehension. The man who applies this doesn't become colder, he becomes quieter internally, less reactive, less fragmented, and paradoxically, more felt. Because presence returns the moment you stop abandoning it for answers. At the end of all of this, the truth is simpler than it sounds and harder than it looks. A man's value has never come from how much he understands. It comes from how contained he is when understanding is unavailable. Self-containment is the ability to remain whole without answers, to stay rooted when things are unclear, to hold direction when emotions fluctuate. And that quality is felt immediately, long before it's ever articulated. Most men spend their lives chasing meaning. They want to know where they stand, what something means, how someone feels. They believe clarity creates safety, but real safety doesn't come from explanations, it comes from internal stability. The man who needs meaning to feel calm is already compromised. His center lives outside of him, and anything that lives outside of you can be taken away. Self-containment reverses that. When you stop chasing meaning, you stop fragmenting yourself. You no longer split your attention between who you are and how you're being received. You remain intact. You observe without shrinking. You act without waiting. You let uncertainty exist without trying to dissolve it immediately. And in that space, something powerful returns presence. Holding center doesn't mean disengaging from life or people. It means your sense of self doesn't rise and fall with emotional weather. You don't need constant understanding to stay steady. You don't collapse into thought every time something feels ambiguous. You remain available without being porous, open without being exposed. This is where male value actually lives. Not in intelligence, not in insight, not in emotional fluency, but in the ability to stay steady when understanding is unavailable. That steadiness creates gravity. It anchors interactions. It restores weight to your words, your presence, your decisions. The man who keeps his value isn't the one who understands the most. It's the one who stays steady when understanding is unavailable. And the moment you stop trying to understand everything, your value stops leaking.